Hey guys, it's Tony, and we're back on the bench. And this evening, I wanted to do a video on what I would call a incomplete reel, and I want to talk a little bit about the parts that are missing from this reel, and what the pros and cons are to fixing a reel like this, replacing parts and whatnot. So we're talking about a Penn Squidder. It's the 140 model. All right, it's kind of a traditional surf, conventional surf classic, if you will. Okay, and we've got a bunch of parts here in the bins. All right, and we've even got two spools right here for it, but this reel is missing a handful of parts. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about these parts that are missing here. So what I did is I took the time to see what parts were missing, and I happen to have a couple of extra spare parts kicking around. Not many though for this particular model. Okay, so what we did is we went to mysticparts.com and just generated a list basically of the parts that are missing. Okay, so we're going to talk about that right now. So first part that's missing is the outer ring here, okay, for this side plate. Okay, you see how it's got the inner ring, but there's no outer ring. Okay, and outer rings for these reels are not the same as the inner rings because the holes are recessed differently so that the screw heads sink down in nicer, more flush. Okay, now you could in fact use this reel without that outer ring. That's not a problem. Okay, but you just have to be aware that, it is supposed to have that outer ring, and it's essentially for protection. Okay, all the the Senator line, had the outer ring, and the Squidder, was kind of like the Cadillac version of the Surfmaster, essentially. Because if you look at a Surfmaster side plate, it's got this same etched scene here. However, it doesn't have that outer side plate, so that doesn't really affect the functionality of the reel. Okay, but it's a cosmetic thing, and it's supposed to be there, and it's not. So that outer ring 28A-140 is missing. Okay. Next piece that's missing is there's no stand. Okay, to this reel, and that's obviously a critical part that you have to have. Okay. Another part that's missing, a couple of parts that are missing, are some frame posts. I've got a couple here. I question if one of these is actually the right one or not because it looks a little thicker than the other, but we'll just say that we need two of them right out the gate, just to keep things uniform. All right, so there's a couple of those that we need. And then drag washer wise, we've got all the metal washers here and a tension washer. However, we don't have any of the HT100 drag washers that you would have to have in here for this clutch kit to function right. So you got to have three of those. And then there's the handle side inner ring, okay, and that the side that goes on here. Okay, that whole ring is just missing completely, and you got to have that. That's part of the of the whole design, basically. Okay, so what I want to talk about real briefly here is you got all those parts missing from this reel. Okay, and it all kind of comes down to how important the reel is to you. If it holds a lot of sentimental value, then yeah, you're going to want to go on out and find these parts, okay, indefinitely. Okay, now we've also got bearings here on both sides. They were frozen, and I was actually able to free those up with some penetrating oil over a few days' time. Okay, so I think they're actually in pretty fair shape. I don't think there's any real big issues there. Okay, but long story short, I've got this list right here. Subtotal $80.30. Okay, and that's not even including tax or shipping. Okay, so right there, you're $80 plus, into this reel. Okay, now this reel is not made in production anymore, and for some people, they're really sought after for collectible value, and then there's people that want to use them. Okay, still. Okay, and there's really nothing wrong with that, but it all comes down to, the price point and money and what you want to spend. Okay, I've bought and used squitters that are essentially in the same kind of shape as all these parts are that we're seeing for around $40. Okay, give or take a few. All right, so if you're really strong minded to fix up the reel with all these brand new parts. Okay, well then that's the route to take, I suppose. For me, this reel is a parts reel. Okay, these are spare parts at this point, and the reel doesn't hold any other real value as far as I'm concerned. Now, what one thing that you can do, and this is a little tip. Okay, the Squidder 140 and the Surfmaster 200 share a lot of parts in common. Okay, and just to give you a viewpoint of what the Surfmaster looks like, here it is. Okay, and essentially the frame posts, the stand, the rings, these inner rings. Okay, all those parts are all interchangeable with the Squidder 140. Okay, as well as the drag washers. Okay, so those are all just tips and tricks, basically. Back in the day, I believe they actually called the Surfmaster kind of like the poor man's Squidder, basically, because it had a more friendly price point. It was more affordable, and really the biggest differences is that they used bushings on either side here, in opposed to the ball bearings here, and supposedly you didn't get a spool, a plastic spool that had fins on it like the Squidder ones do. Okay, but depending on what generation of Squidder you have, okay, you may or may not even have that. I happen to have this one here. Okay, and this one actually has an aluminum spool attached to it. Okay, and so hence it doesn't have those air brake fins. Okay, but everything else is sound there. So, long story short, if you really want to fix up this reel, it might actually be worth it to go on out onto eBay, and you could probably pick up a Surfmaster that's roughly in this kind of shape, in this kind of condition for, I'd say maybe $25 or something like that, give or take a few. Yeah, now, granted, the chrome may not be in the best of shape or something like that. It comes down to, do you want it to just be functional, or does it have to look pretty as well? If it needs to look pretty, well, then you're probably going to have to spend a little bit more money that way. Okay, but those are just some tips and things to help you in situations like this, where if you have a reel and you're missing parts. Okay, those are things that you can look out for. The handles are easily interchangeable, with a lot of other Penn models of this generation as well. And then some of these other parts are a little bit more universal almost. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's those are some options for you if you have this reel and it's in pieces like this, or if you have another reel that's in the same kind of situation. You can make reference to sources online to total out parts like I did, and then you can also go out and find other reels that might share the same parts, such as this Surfmaster. So I hope that information is helpful, and thanks again for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please make sure you do subscribe and hit the notification button, and that way it'll give you all the updates as to when there are new videos being posted. And I do intend to have quite a few more coming out shortly, including more short videos such as this one on reels that are missing parts or have broken parts, for that matter. So make sure you stay tuned for those, and we'll see you next time.